Yeah, definitely felt the pains in the past, like you said, where you've got the super slow on load times, and the bigger the app, the more you feel that, isn't it? And it always seems to be the client doesn't particularly care about the styling until you feel you're done. Then all of a sudden they've got a million different opinions, and it always seems to be last minute, at least in my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We worked with a government organisation who, very similar to that, came to the end of the project. We were approaching going live, and it went through an accessibility audit, and there was so much feedback came back on the back of it. We used a variation of this approach. Unfortunately, it was pre-app formulas, but been able to very quickly say, okay, you don't like that green because it's not accessible. We'll change one value and everything all pulls through the rest of the app. It was a frustrating day, but it could have been a lot worse if we hadn't used some sort of theming in there. On the subject to government stuff, I know this is kind of slightly off-piste. There is the GDS design kit that if anyone on the call is working with any kind of government customers, they do provide JSON objects that contain the different colours that governments use. I would strongly urge you, if you're going through any kind of pre-sales activity, do have a look at that and do build your kind of proof of concept apps to be roughly in line with the kind of things that governments expect. It's not rocket science. It's a set of colours and a set of guidance in terms of what you should and shouldn't do. Worth mentioning, this isn't exclusive to just UK government. It's also covered by things like the Army, the Navy, the Ministry of Justice, all these kind of things as well. So anything that's central or local gov, largely they do use GDS. And that's often a good starting point. I've actually referred back to it a few times for non-government customers and said, look, everyone's familiar with a gov.uk website. They all look the same, they all feel the same. Here's the kind of things you might want to consider when talking about accessibility for your users and making a nice looking app. Like, at the end of the day, no one wants to spend all day staring at, without putting a finer point on it, the most boring app in the world that I showed you right back at the start there. In the modern world, this is not an acceptable UI for a modern user. People are bored of the standard blue. They're bored of the standard buttons. Let's make it easier for them, but also make it easier for ourselves when building it, when the inevitable happens and 2 weeks before go live, they give you a million pieces of feedback.